Hey everybody, welcome to the QTS experience. I appreciate you showing up here. Today we're going to have a great conversation. I'll have the panelists introduce themselves in just a second. What has come up a number of times today from the keynote here at the event, live in Atlanta at the Conn3ct Atlanta Data Center Summit event, and throughout many of the conversations is talent, both the existing talent, attracting new talent, and indirectly, how when we do that, how do we engage our community? I mean, one of the things that gets a community, we've talked about the difficulties of a community, engaged really quickly in a positive way. Are you actually helping my children or my siblings or my family be successful in a way that makes sense? And if you do, and if they agree with that, and you see that happen all over the world, where economic prosperity, opportunity, and safety come into a nation or into a people group, conflict goes away. And so I think it's an important and timely conversation. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start off kind of working down here? I don't know why I keep thumbing my microphone. We'll start here on this side of the panel just in a minute or two. Introduce yourself, not the LinkedIn version, but just how did you get here into your role, and help us to understand a little bit more about you. Why don't we start with you, Chloe? Oh, with myself? Oh, they all know me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe Place. I, from the LinkedIn side, oversee brand strategy at Codis Holdings. How did I get here to this stage? I am truly a bit of a poster child of not knowing what a data center was, believing it all floats in the sky. That was about 10 years ago when I started working for a modular data center company out of Arizona called Base Layer. They were the sister company of IO Data Centers. It was a big shiny box, and for a long time I still didn't understand what was happening inside of it. But of course, like most over the years and being educated into this space, we're all connected to data centers. I don't have to preach that to this room. But obviously, as part of our topic, that's what we're trying to make the rest of the world understand. So brand strategy, that is touching all things in business development, marketing, communications, PR, customer success, all parts of the brand, but workforce development for us at Codis Holdings is a huge one.
Good afternoon. So my name is Najee Gatson, and I am the Director of Corporate Work Study at Cristo Rey Atlanta Jesuit High School. Our school is unique. We are a part of a network of schools. There's 41 Cristo Reys across the country. And in Atlanta, we have the unique opportunity of being the only one in the state of Georgia where we provide a corporate work study internship experience for all of our high school students for 4 years. I've been a lifelong educator, coach basketball in the collegiate and high school levels as well, but essentially I am here to show, we have some of our students that was recognized earlier today, the possibilities and the exposure to this industry for our students. We talk about workforce development, we talk about building a diverse pipeline. Well, Cristo Rey Atlanta, we have that talent to be able to do so and to give them some valuable work experience and exposure into different industries across the country.
Guessing I'm live here. So Melinda Brumfield. I'm the Senior Director at Black Box. I live in Atlanta. I actually came into this industry as a foreman and superintendent in the field over 30 years ago, and was introduced into the data center world via the engineering path. So I've been doing that since the early 2000s. I lead our sales team on the hyperscale side here out of Atlanta, and I'm excited to be here. It's cool to see a bunch of familiar faces. I've had the fortune of working with a lot of engineers in this room throughout my career, so it's like old home week walking around here. So.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourselves. Najee, I want to start with you, if you don't mind. Robbie Sovey started off with labor. We've talked about in the other liquid cooling keynote, not just the complications of the infrastructure, but what it might mean for the humans in a data center. You sit at this intersection of exposure to our industry, education, future workforce. What is it because we're all earnest about it. We've talked about it for years. What is it that we're either blind to or we're just missing the mark for some of or a majority of the future employees we're trying to connect with?
So great question. I think what's missing is the doing action, right? We talk about it a lot in how we want to develop the workforce and the young students, and we talk about exposure, but we have students that have no idea what data centers are. We have students that see what, they go off what they hear on social media, on TikTok, and the news, on the snippets of news. Nobody watches the real news. But we don't have anybody coming into the school, sitting down with our students and explaining what this industry is and the opportunities that can arise from it. So I think it's, we need to get away from talking about, what the possibilities are and actually getting in and started to develop that pipeline of workers within this space. The different career paths within this space is not a one-trick pony within the data centers industry. So it's the exposure, but it's also the education piece as well, I think is what we're missing with our youth and especially our high school students.
So Chloe, I'm going to pivot to you. As you hear something like that, you're part of brand, you're part of communication, is the challenge that is the barrier, we don't know the door exists? Is it explaining what the door is? What do you think the barrier is, as Najee just explained it?
So I think a big piece of it is that within our own industry, we do talk and we understand how important this is, but we default, and it's to nobody's fault, most industries do it, you default to that's another department's job. That is a different team who handles the outbound efforts. They do a wonderful, good job, thumbs up to them, and I'm gonna go about what I'm doing. And that's the word, like the action piece is the missing piece. Because we all know it's important, 100%. But I also think with that, sometimes it's believing that it's gonna take a lot of time and effort. I mean, last year we got Cristo Rey. CODIS is proudly a partner of the Cristo Rey School up in Cleveland. And we just said, hey, this could be a really cool thing to show here in Atlanta. I sent one email to Mr. Johnson. He is in the back, probably back there, wonderful individual. And Cristo Rey was on this stage. I sent 2 emails, one to Brian and one to Cristo Rey. And then they were on this stage a month later. It's really, I hate to even say it, it's not that hard. But it's the action piece and not thinking it's another department's job. That's what I think is we're missing in the blind side is actually action. That might be my word for the rest of this panel.
Action, I like it. It's definitely better than closed loop, which I heard earlier is so boring. We don't need to hear any more about that. Melinda, before we came up on stage, I loved hearing your story 30 years ago, getting involved, coming up through the trades. I wish we could go back to, wish I could go back to me 30 years ago when I didn't hurt every time I woke up in the morning, That's how I know who my people are. If we got our rewind fees back, I could retire a year early, but conversation for another day. But yeah, exactly, that's what my kids said. What's a rewind fee? So I kicked them out of my house. When you hear this, what Najee just described, what Chloe just talked about, black box, prominent in the industry, you've come up over multiple decades. How is it that you guys think about that and that action mindset for you personally, for the industry, do you think, and for black box?
Thanks for the question.
Yeah.
So that is honestly part of the reason why I'm with Black Box. For those of you that know me, the moves that I've made in my career have been because I wanted to make an impact. And I want to be with companies that want to make an impact in this industry. And Black Box is very forward-thinking and really taking what has been deemed as a trade and really what I call dressing it up. It's hard to attract talent for what people don't think is a very sexy, and I hate to use the word sexy, but people don't think of low voltage installation, cabling, splicing, all of that. They don't think of that as a sexy avenue or workforce, but it's really, a very it's a pretty exciting career path for someone. And, for someone that maybe struggles in what I call books or, computer technology, and someone that really likes to work with their hands, or maybe grew up in carpentry or, around a family that likes to fiddle with widgets, it's giving these young people a career path that's a very successful one. So Black Box has really invested in. We've invested in, which I'm really passionate about, our GT100 program, which is showing engineers another path, right, to low voltage. Maybe you sat in the classes and you heard about arc flash, or maybe you heard about the, really heavy, high power voltage, and it kind of scared you off. I was like, well, here's another path. So we're capturing those people and keeping them in the industry. We also have what we call our Talent on Tap program, which is coming straight out of high school. These are the kids that are walking into, military opportunities, or, their dad or their mother says, hey, you're graduating high school, so either go get a career or, go to college. And not everybody's cut out to go to college. I was not cut out to go to college, but I've had a very successful career path. So we've got that. That's a 2-week program that's taking young people in, educating them on what we do, teaching them safety, and then pairing them up with someone in the field so that they get hands-on experience and have a path to a career. And then we're doing programs internal too, which is another thing, is shifting people around, so that they don't have to do the same thing for the rest of their career. It's giving them exposure to other aspects of what they do, and and just giving them that a little bit more well-rounded, experience.
Yeah. As you're talking, we're gonna go a little bit off script. I don't even know why I bring this thing up here. We'll see. Just by show of hands, in your organizations, modest or pretty sophisticated, who has some sort of program to connect with local trade organizations, community colleges, within your organization, something to attract people from outside of your organization that aren't looking, a non-traditional person, whether it's a student or whatever, has something going on in some way? I would imagine, yeah. It's been my experience as well. That's I would say, for the sake of the podcast, 50% of the room at least, probably more. Probably a few that didn't raise their hand just aren't sure what it is exactly. Our organization, we have a thing called our Data Center Academy where you have to have zero experience, zero. And we will bring you in. It's not for everybody. We have a pretty robust, not just internship program, other programs. You could be an art major, you could be whatever, and we'll put you in our critical operation technician. And one of the things, program, and so they spend 6 months, 8 months going through this program. When they graduate, if they're successful, and we like them and they like us, they continue on with us. And here's what we learned. I love y'all's reaction to this as well. We used to spend time saying, if you like to do with your hands, this is what I would do all the time. You like to do your hands. You like don't think of it this way, that you're an art major, you like to think outside the box, or you think visually, or maybe you are mechanical. And we would have these conversations all the time, and we got very little interest. And what we found was we just couldn't cast a vision. We couldn't cast a vision for people that were like, I like working at the mall. Not saying that they have the same last name as me, even though they have their degree. No, I see my future this. And what we began pivoting to was less about what that specific role was, and it was more like, what do you want to, like, where do you want life to take you? What does that look like? And I would explain, and many of us have gotten better at this, I got into data centers completely circuitous. I couldn't stand computers, even though my dad was a computer person down at NASA and did a lot of stuff on the shuttle and space station. Most of my family was into that. I'm an old airborne infantry, completely different part of that world. And I had no idea that I had an aptitude for networking or IT or any of these other things. And through a series of circumstances, I got invited to install motherboards at the University of Texas when I was there on vacation because I knew how to do it from gaming. And somebody said, you want to make a few $100 extra to help fund your vacation? You already do that in gaming or whatever. Oh, yeah, sure, I could use a few hundred extra bucks. 4 months later, I was the network administrator because I lied my way into that job because I figured out I could make $50,000 a year, which in 1995 was a tremendous amount of money for my wife and I. To have 500 bucks at the end of the month. Now, I know all of you grew up much more bougie than me, but like I said, I'm an old Army guy who hadn't gone to school yet, who hadn't done any of those things. I just figured out that I had an aptitude. But if somebody had tried to tell me that, later I would run networks for NASCAR racing, land racing, just computer gamers. And these 3 teenagers showed up at one of the tournaments that I held in Charlotte. I would do these around the country. Again, just an IT guy at the University of Texas. One was a 20-year-old and his 2 teenage buddies. The 20-year-old was a kid named Dale Earnhardt Jr. His 18-year-old buddy was a kid named Martin Truex, now retired 2-time NASCAR champion, and Denny Hamlin, who's retiring this year, showed up to computer race with my guys before there was broadband. And that led me later where we hosted online racing at a data center company in Atlanta that became QTS a few years later. And here we are now. What started with me was cast a vision to make some money. You figured out you had an aptitude. And so as we've done that with people, how do I make some of them TikTok faster or Minecraft? For others, how do I publish my stuff for Etsy because I'm an artist? Whatever it is, how do I pay my bills or do something like that? And then, as you were both talking about, here's a door you can go through, because I don't want you to be intimidated by thinking mechanical, electrical, whatever. Just come and see, right? Isn't that what we all do? The things, come and see. So with that as a backdrop, how have you all had an experience like that, if not with yourselves, but in actually connecting, whether it's the kids at Cristo Rey or whatever? It doesn't have to be as exaggerated as racing, but whatever. Have you had an experience like that that you can share?
Yeah, I'll start. You don't know or you don't believe what you can't see. And that's the lives of our students at Cristo Rey. 96% of our students are first-generation students. Their parents didn't go to college, so we offer a lot of support to get them there. A lot of their parents and their family members haven't heard of a lot of the industries that we serve, that we partner with at Cristo Rey Atlanta. So the message is, okay, how do you take a chance to have our students see what is possible? We have a young lady here who's going to speak after this, who her freshman and sophomore year was running from technology, was running from data. She did not like it. So purposefully, she was placed at Microsoft in her junior year, and she had to be, she was engulfed in it. And she came out of that experience loving it. And she's about to go to Georgetown, and she wants to be a data analyst because of the exposure, because she saw what is possible, right? And we talked about not being able just to hear about it and talk about it, but Microsoft stepped in and did something about it. They had our students in their facility learning coding, engineering, the finance side of that department. It's kind of the magic sauce of what we do at Cristo Rey Atlanta. But the overarching goal is to get our youth to see it, to see the vision. It's one thing to talk about it and explain it, but we're all hands-on people, right? We all got to kind of do it and fail and, trial by error just a little bit just to understand what we're doing wrong and what we're doing right. And that's a part of partnering with us at Cristo Rey is giving our students a chance to see what's possible.
I love it. When I've had many conversations, I have 3 daughters in their 20s, their friend group, and I've tried to help them and their parents by getting them off the payroll and connecting them to something, what's the marketplace? Like, I would love to be a professional disc golfer. The state of Georgia won't let me do it. We've got too many Bigfoot sightings stomping around the woods, so they don't approve that. It's a lot of trauma. But I got to go where the marketplace. So I guess, Chloe, I'm going to start with you. So when I try to cast a vision, they need to see somebody that looks like them or sounds like them or is non-traditional. Melinda, that's why I like, 30 years, I was not what you would experience in a traditional trade. Chloe, I like what you said before is you can't outsource this. Basically, we're all little mini evangelists within an organization. It's not somebody else's department. So when an organization's getting it right to connect with, cast that vision, connect with, what do you think that looks like actually?
Well, I'm going to use CODIS as an example. It's a good one.
We approve.
Yeah, thank you. So at CODIS, and it is rather unique. I hadn't really seen this. We've had this conversation on stage a couple times at Connect conferences about workforce development, sitting alongside Cristo Ray, and often in this seat has actually been my president, Michael Kokel. And I bring that up because that is the leadership of our company who takes the time to talk about how important this is across the country. Then vice versa, I'm going to call him out in the crowd. Jason, one of my colleagues, was just in 5th grade classrooms a couple weeks ago talking about supply chain within the data center industry and explaining to 5th graders what a data center is, why you should care, and all of these different sectors of opportunities for them. We've had team members out in West Texas, we all know what's in West Texas, within the high school layer of Career Development Day. I've had team members on the college side, leadership in the college rooms talking about data centers, case studies, and presenting. So I take you down that ping-ponging rabbit hole because it's company-wide. Back to what I said earlier, it does not fall into the hands of one single department. It is company-wide. That is presidents, VPs, directors, customer success teams, and then even add in the layer on property. At CODIS Holdings in Cleveland is where we're based. We have 4 students a week come in who are working in a sector, a wide array of our different departments with a wide array of leadership and team members as their mentors and supervisors. So I think what can make, again, things different is when everybody recognizes they can do a little bit. And I'm not trying to sound like a preacher up here, but it really is like going back, it's not that hard. One interesting one that I even think is like we've had Cristo Ray on this stage a couple times now, and I don't know if anybody, I'm going to call you out, has anybody even actually reached out after this? You recognize the value, you see the importance, go take a tour of the school. They're spectacular, it's absolutely wonderful, and that doesn't have to come from human resources to get involved. That's my
I second that message. Come check us out.
Go take a tour.
And by the way, Jason looked much older than I thought, but congrats on your 5th grade success project and getting to middle school.
Jason did wonderful.
I love it. There's a future for you. Melinda, when you hear Chloe and CODIS, when you imagine that at Black Box, how is evangelism with a little e lived out there?
Yeah, I think for us, it's more about, the topic, which is future workforce. It's, running an organization or having a company or institution, anything. It's for us to continue to progress forward, we have to be able to figure out how to create a workforce. And, back to what we spoke about earlier, I think that there's been a wonderful investment in the organizations and a lot of establishment of organizations. This is one, this event is one where we're really good at speaking on panels. We're really good at publishing amazing documents, but we're not always really good about following through with the actions that we need to do to build the workforce. So again, actions speak louder than words. I give women sometimes a little bit of credit. When we started WEMCO, God, it feels like forever ago, it was like 6 or 7 of us in South Carolina that were end users, and we're all sitting around, it's a bunch of women, hackling, doing what we do best, right? And we're all around, we're like talking about, we're in a room with a bunch of men, really nice suits, and there were very few of us, unless they were in sales. It was like, unless you were a marketing person or a salesperson, there was very few women. So we all kind of got around the table and we said, how do we make a difference? And we all started going and knocking on high schools and middle schools and going and speaking at these schools and talking to teachers and counselors and educating them on what it meant to be in the data center world, I would go down to Georgia Tech or Georgia State, and I would literally sit down with the counselors there and talk to, can I speak to your nursing students? Can I speak to anybody that is in a 24/7 capacity right now and see if I can pull them over and have interest into the data center market? So that's action. And I think that that's what, I just think that's, to me, what we're doing at Black Box. We're investing, we're spending the money to set the trade schools up. We're investing in our own workforce. But we're also partnering with other large institutions like Direct Line and other companies to create a path. And it takes money. I mean, having educators, having folks, it's a commitment on ours. It's not a billable form.
Right.
It will translate into billability, but right now it's not billable, right?
Right.
So,
And I also recognize not every organization that's going to see this or is here in this room is sophisticated enough or feels like they're in a space where they can pick up and call a Cristo Ray. But somebody you work with, there are a number of operators here in this room. Some of them have been up on the stage just like us at our organization. If you're not connected to somebody, connect to somebody. And if you're not sure exactly how to do that, one of your vendors, one of your partners, one of the people on this panel, just reach out to us. Even if the geography doesn't work exactly, the sophistication, how can we help? We would encourage you. You said earlier, I'm not a preacher. Well, we should all be evangelizing. And here's why. I'm going to get to the closing question, but it's this. What we're really talking about, we've seen a bunch of buildings up here. We've seen a bunch of schematics. We talk about that all the time. I've spent the last few weeks on a number of television and radio and newspaper conversations and in rooms with people that are frightened or misunderstanding. We've talked about that here. And what I want them to see beyond that infrastructure, and I hope you do as well, is that inside there is human flourishing. Every single one of you have on your table a remote control to a data center. Every one. Your MyChart, your whatever. You've heard this before. But we need to, and I realize that a whole bunch of you, probably not on stage, are introverted engineers. So we're not asking you to be an extrovert, maybe sometimes play an extrovert, but engage or find the people in your organization, empower them if you're a senior leader with the budget or the time or the opportunity to get engaged with people that are early adopters and are already doing it. If we don't, not only is the misinformation going to continue, but what that means for us as a nation, as a people, is that we miss opportunities. Progress is not going to be slowed down. It's going somewhere in the world, and we want to do it ethically and sustainably and all of those things. So find a way. Last question for our group. If you were here in this audience, your 16 or 18-year-old version of you, what would you want to hear from this stage? And no talking about past relationships. We're not going to do that. We're just talking about technology. What would you want to say to them, or what would you want them to hear? Why don't we come this way, Melinda, from you down to me.
So I think, and this is terrible to say, but listen to your mother. No, I mean,
now that'll preach.
Yeah, no, I think that, just listen, talk less, listen more is, something that God knows has been hard for me to learn in my life, and I still teach myself to do that sometimes, but yeah, just listen more and talk less.
Listen to people that love you the most and what they're for, and find a way to find how you move progress forward. Najee.
I would have loved to kind of hear, going away from, we hear how people make sacrifices, you have to sacrifice to get what you want, but I would have loved to hear, how do you invest in me, right? How would you invest in me and my future? How would you invest in me in learning more about this space? That's what I would have loved to hear. Like, I want to hear that investment piece. Melinda talked about it's not billable now, but it's going to be billable in the future, right? It's going to pay dividends in the future. We love, in our space, we talk about return on investment. You got to invest first to get a return back. So that's what I would love.
Yeah. Chloe.
And I think mine would be what do I do now that I've heard what's happening on stage or in this room? What one person do I go walk up to who's going to hand me a business card or take my email and we are going to talk later and actually open that door of opportunity? I think that would be kind of just where do I go now?
Right. And I would love it to encourage whoever's in the room, young or not as young, how to have courage to do it. I don't know, because we have a lot of biz dev and salespeople in here. The courage, do you know what the number one fear, it's my podcast, we're trying not to go sideways. What's the number one fear of humans? Before you shout it out, let's ask her up at this stage. Number one fear of human beings, far and away.
Air loss.
Was that you, Lord? I don't know. I can't relate. Somebody said public speaking. Public speaking is number one. What's number two? Fear of rejection. Fantastic. I'll skip to number 4. What's number 4? Death. What's number 3? Spiders. You're welcome. So if a spider runs on the stage with a bunch of introverts, they're going to pass out and die. We'll accomplish all of them. That fear of rejection feels like you're going to die. You don't know how to do it. And unless you're just spectacularly unique, for most of us, we have forgotten what that looks like. So as you engage with each other or people who aren't here, many of you have somebody in mind right now. Man, if somebody would hear this, I'd get to take Dave's job. But besides that, somebody needs to hear this. Somebody I know, somebody that's unmoored, some organization, somebody leader in my organization, how to reach out, how do we connect? Somebody needs to hear that. So be gracious when people reach out to you. Please try to facilitate that. And I love the theme that we've more or less had, which is there is opportunity, but don't wait for the least experience to reach out to you. You reach out to your peers or to the other folks. We have time, I think, for a question or two.
Hi, my name is Victoria Kimball. I work for JSET Automated Technologies. We're a specialty contractor for the building automation installation systems, electrical power monitoring systems. So we have an existing education department outreach program, but as you mentioned, it is not a billable department. It is something that at the first sign of we need to cut costs is where we start to kind of get that tight and that pressure, right? So as somebody who is trying to increase that outreach, I'm kind of curious to know what kind of metrics you would suggest tracking in order to kind of prove that these programs and this outreach and this kind of action works.
Can I just say that it's Victoria? Victoria? Well, I have a wonderful QTSer named Brian Darby. He's been with us for a while. Brian's out of Phoenix. Brian is a VP in technology operations, and Brian has spent more time than anybody else I know where this is not his job, starting with a decade ago where he looked around and said, my passion is to connect, not because there was no employment shortage, but I saw other human beings that looked and sounded like me that didn't feel like they had an opportunity. And Brian, on his own, reached out to community colleges and said, hey, what's going on? And then he partnered with people at Stack and Brian Jaybeck and people in iMasons and and they didn't know. And how that became a metric, there was no metric, was all of a sudden in community engagement, when people would come and talk to the audience, aren't you concerned about fill in these things, which are valid concerns, we should be able to answer them. But what are these kids out here that don't look like the normal, they're not pedigree from this electrician group or mechanical group or this, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we heard these things and we were invited to come. And I hear the average pay for a technician at that company is $80,000 a year, or this really sounds interesting to me, or they reached out and all of a sudden parents, you want to change the world? How can you help me and those that are mine flourish? No metric. And I'm not trying to be Pollyanna, but when we do that, when every great initiative at the groundswell, anywhere, ever, metrics get invented then. And then you get groups and they find a way. And if it's not in your org, it's in an org you partner with. That's what I would encourage you to do. For Brian, it's just a labor of love, which he still does. And I'm sure his boss sometimes reminds him when he shows up, look at my metrics. Yes, but did you get that IT thing done as well? But that's how you change the world. And we, I think, would encourage you, get in, invent the metrics, bounce them off of other people. When your executive board sees this is making a difference, you'll get everything that you need.
Could I throw in one more?
Please, absolutely.
I think, too, I've been in a few of those situations as well. Talking with your leadership team and identifying what is their goal. Are we short-staffed? Are we not getting great talent? Is our retention rate awful? Find what they care about, and then most of the time you can tie it back to workforce strategies, and then ask for the budget, and then return with, yeah, retention rates have gone up 20% since we did, X, Y, and Z. So kind of flipping the script a little bit on not just like, well, what KPIs are you going to bring us? Be like, well, what do you care about, and I will deliver with those KPIs. So that would be one of my recommendations.
Great advice. You may have to do this on your own quietly in the beginning, but the people that do are tremendously successful. As we wrap it up here, I just want to say, for those of you who listen, we hope you enjoyed this. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you loved it, hit the subscribe button. Thank you, Connect Data, for joining us today. Give our panelists a hand. We'll see you next time, everybody.